Hey everybody, you are tuning into Conversations with Courtney. We're back for another episode, and I am with my friend, my cousin, Satara Gilbert. First of all, we're family. We go way, way, way back. You are related to my cousin Terry. You're his sister.
Yes.
And I'm his cousin. And so we just family. We just grouping it all in as family. Because we used to hang out.
Yes.
Like,
yeah.
I remember. Okay, go ahead. Yes.
I don't know why. Okay. I don't know why, but I always think of like being on Miss Lisa's like back deck, like whenever you come to visit Tyler and Moody and them. And it's just like being out there in the summertime, having fun, like get into trouble.
Yeah.
But like that's like my core memory is like us just spending like time outside too.
That's my core memory too, like playing hide and seek and tag in her backyard because she had that basketball court. Yep. She had that deck. Yeah. We used to like really be like hanging.
We go back.
Yeah. You knew me before the glow up, and I knew you before the glow up. It's like, thank God.
When you know someone at that phase of their life, then you're locked in.
Yeah. Yes. What have you been up to? Lately.
So lately it's really just been like kind of working on myself. So I'm in therapy. I do weekly therapy. I've done that for about 4 years. So like that's always a big part of like my self-growth journey. But outside of that, like I've tried to start digging in deeper. So that's like, okay, like I've worked on a lot, but there's still things that I need to I don't even know what the word would be, but there's things that I want for myself. And it's like, you know, okay, well, what can I do to get there? So that's why I really wanted to hone in on this year. It's like, okay, well, what else can I add instead of just doing like the bare minimum?
What is the most important thing in your life in this season?
Yeah. The most important thing is finding myself, I think. And it's like, I used to get so in my head about it. It's like, you know, I'm 31 going on 32 in a couple months and I don't know who I am. You know, it's like I can mirror people, I can like what they like, and I can, you know, pick up whatever they're exhibiting, but like, is that what I really like? Is that who I am? And so instead of like being avoidant of that subject or, you know, that topic, it's like, okay, well, like find out who you are.
Right. And how do you find out who you are? Like, what do you do to do that assignment?
Yeah. For me, it's been a lot of boundaries. And I say that because like, I'm a people pleaser at heart.
Me too.
You know, I want to be liked by people. I want to feel involved. I want to like, feel like I belong. And so it's sometimes we'll seek out people who maybe are not the best for me, but I want that validation from them. And so I have to put boundaries in place. And by doing that, it's like, okay, well, I'm not doing these traits, behaviors, or things like that to get them to like me. So if I don't like that because I'm not acting that way anymore, then like, what do I like?
The important thing is if they really are in your life, they'll adjust.
Yeah.
If they'll be mad, but they'll adjust. That's one thing that I've learned in my age is people will adjust.
If they're for you,
they will get it.
Yeah.
They might be mad. They might say like, I don't like that.
Yeah.
But anybody who is truly meant for you, they'll come right back into your space.
Yeah, because and
respect that boundary moving forward. Yeah. Explain to me your upbringing.
Yeah. So I love dark humor, and that's just how I process things and I cope with it. But you remember the book series, A Series of Unfortunate Events?
Yes.
Yeah. With a little, so I used to joke, and I was like, that's how I would describe, you know, my childhood. And I just mean that in the sense that, so my parents split up when I was younger, and I ended up moving in with my mom, and it just was not a good time. You know, very, very religious, upbringing and beliefs that she had, and outside of that, she had some mental health issues that she was struggling with. So there was a lot of things that happened. I believe I lived with her for 6 years before I moved in with my dad. There was a lot of physical abuse that went on, mental abuse, verbal abuse. So just trying to navigate that.
Yeah. Do you think that how you grew up accounted for like your drug use, or do you think it was just the people you were hanging around?
No, definitely the things that I endured when I was growing up contributed to it. I always say, like, and it's different paths for everyone, but I know a majority, it's like kind of like, you know, the partiers who maybe end up getting addicted and kind of get into that lifestyle. For me, it was like I just wanted to block out, you know, the things that I couldn't stop thinking about because I hadn't processed it yet.
That's deep, Satara, because a lot of people, I shouldn't say a lot, but some people that I even know, they are overthinkers. And so if you don't have a healthy way of processing those intrusive thoughts, that could lead to bigger problems down the line.
Yeah, 100%. I remember it was maybe my first or second week in treatment in rehab, and I was in a group therapy session, and I'd asked the group therapist, I was like, how do I forget? I was like, that's the only way I'm going to be able to stop using and drinking is if I can forget what I went through. And he's like, you don't. He's like, that's not how it works. You have to work through it and you have to feel it and you have to process it. And I was so like against that. I was like, I don't want to touch this. I don't want to dive into it.
Yeah, because I mean, who wants to rehash the same things over and over and over again? And so I could see why someone would say, I just want to block out what has hurt me so bad.
Yeah. Because if you don't deal with the hurt, like you're stuck in that time frame forever.
Yeah.
You know.
That's so true.
Yeah.
How have you processed?
Yeah. So I've been in therapy since I left treatment. So going on 4 years now. Well, sorry, a little over 4 years now.
And congratulations.
Thank you.
Because you've been how many days sober?
I was 4 years, September 18th of last year. Yeah.
I'm so proud of you. I really am.
Thank you.
It takes a lot to be disciplined. And we talk about, you know, oh, I'm going to avoid sweets or, you know, I'm going to avoid social media. But then avoiding drugs and alcohol, that's a whole nother beast. So I'm really, really proud of you.
I truly never believed I could be at this point. Like I remember in the height of my addiction, I would, you know, be in the parking lots and waiting for someone to come drop something off. And I would just cry because my coworkers would go home and I'm like, I mean, in my opinion, I'm like, they're leading normal lives. Like they're able to go home to families and go do things. And here I am waiting on hours. And I was like, I will never get out of this. I'm either going to continue to be an addict or I'm going to die.
Did you have to go through any interventions?
I didn't. So what led up to me deciding to go to treatment is a few of my friends they didn't know the extent of it, but they knew that I was different. And they had kind of like, you know, broached the subject like, hey, should you seek help? And I kept saying, oh, I don't have a problem. I don't know what you're talking about. And I was so against it. And it was mostly because I didn't want my family to know. I didn't want my dad and my stepmom to know. Because I was like, I can't disappoint them. It's like, I'll struggle with this the rest of my life before I let them know that I'm struggling with drugs.
Do you think they really knew deep down inside?
They definitely had suspicions. Okay. Again, I don't think they knew the extent because, you know, and I'm saying this as an addict or, you know, a recovering addict is like we can hide things when we want to. But they definitely have suspicions because you're a different person. You know, you lose yourself. And so the day before I checked into treatment, I was involved in a drive-by shooting and trying to pick up drugs. And I remember sitting there. My dad ended up coming to the scene. I couldn't leave because they had to call, you know, law enforcement and things and like take statements. And I remember seeing him across the street, and like here I am talking to this officer, and I was like, "What is happening?" You know, I was like, "This cannot be my life. One, I wasn't raised like this. My family doesn't act like this, and I don't want this for myself." And the next morning, I was in rehab.
Wow. Yeah. Sometimes it takes dramatic moments to bring you to reality. Like, okay.
Yeah. You know, I'm just blessed that I didn't, you know, nothing worse happened. Like, you know.
Yeah, like that you weren't killed, and no one else, I'm assuming, was killed. Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
Those wake-up calls.
Yeah. Wake-up calls, they come like.
Yeah. The universe is like, okay, I've tried to tell you so many different ways. Now I'm going to give you a big
wake-up call. Now you can either take this or not. I knew a young man who he was also addicted to drugs, and he died and came back to life, but he was not able to beat his addiction, you know. And so it's really up to you if you want to adhere to the wake up call.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that you did.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you were like, this is not my
for
life.
me. Yeah. I want better for myself. And definitely at that point in time, because, you know, that's before all the work had happened, I didn't believe that I was like deserving of it, but I was like, I'm going to try, because it has to be better than what this is. Do
you feel like your lowest points in life have been used for your purpose in your walk?
I think so, 100%. I think the way that I show up for others now, whether, you know, it's through my job or other people that I meet in the rooms at self-help meetings, just being able to relate and be like, especially for newcomers. Because it's very daunting when you're trying to get sober at first, because you don't think, you know, especially if this is all you know for years or sometimes your entire life. People start very young sometimes. You don't see another way out. And so just being able to like share my experiences and my story, and hoping that, you know, maybe they can cherry pick if you need to. But I don't know, that brings me joy. And
how have you stayed on that track though? Because relapse is real, and I'm sure a lot of people go through that.
It's so real. I remember it was maybe a month after I came home from treatment, and I was in my room and I was going through different things, and I found a wallet, like an old wallet, and I had leftover drugs, and I gave it to my stepmom. I was living at home at the time, and I was like sitting in my room for maybe an hour debating if I wanted to go down there and give it to her, or if I was like, you know what, hey, to hell with it. I'm just gonna, you know, this is what I know and it's here right in front of me. But I was like, why give up on myself? Like, you've done so much. You've done the hardest part, admitting you've had a problem, telling your loved ones, and going and seeking treatment, you know? So, I mean, I did take it down to her, but
that's good.
So it's just reminding myself, like, you've done the hard work already. Like, you're past, you know, there's no withdrawals, there's no detox. There's always a solution to whatever problem you have going on.
It can be hard if you, it's kind of like if you're used to something and you're like, just one try or one bite or one drink won't hurt, but it kind of just takes you all the way back off course. You know, and it is kind of like starting the race all over again.
It is. And there's no shame in that, you know, and I would make that clear. Like, if someone does happen to relapse or step back out, like, there is no shame. But the person who's doing the relapsing, and I haven't relapsed, thank God, God willing, I won't, but I can only imagine, like, you've done all this work, and, like, you know, your family and your friends and your loved ones are so proud of you, and you happen to have a mishap. And so, like, I think that keeps people out too, at least from what I've heard from loved ones or people I know. It's just like, okay, well, I've messed up everything, so what's the point? Like,
did you have to switch your entire friend group when you got clean?
So no, actually, which is, I think, is a big part of how I stayed clean, is I didn't have a lot of people around me who used.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Yeah. I had two people who were around me, and we were kind of in it together. And I'm thankful for that, because if it were that easy to go back out and link up with people, because you want that connection, you know, I don't know if I would have had I wouldn't say as easy, but I don't know if I could have gone the amount of time that I have
sustained as long. Because I think a lot of times when it comes to healing, it's about your environment.
It's people, places, things is what we say. If you're around the same people, places, and things, like, how are you going to grow from that? How are you going to stay away from whatever you're trying to stay away from? It's basically impossible. So, like, with, you know, recovery, you can't do it alone. Like, you know, that's why you have the meetings and sponsorship and things like that. Because if I wanted to go this entire 4 years saying, like, oh, I'm not going to drink, I'm not going to use, you know, as soon as we get that first thought, like, we're out.
That's unrealistic for most, you know, addicts, because it's a hopeful thing, but then when you step out of the door and you go back into reality, it's a little bit harder than, you know, because I'm sure when you're in recovery, I'm sure you're restricted, and, you know, you probably can't have certain things and got to be in a certain time?
It's definitely a different path for everyone. So like I didn't go the sober living route because I had my parents, my dad and my stepmom, and they were very supportive and also very strict, which I needed. I needed like the structure and the guidelines.
So you had to be back in the house at a certain time?
I don't know if there was ever like a set curfew. It was more like, and this was of my own doing, but like I shared my location with them. I was like, like, hey, I want you guys to know where I'm at. When I came home from wherever, it was like, hey, you can't be sitting in your car, when you're coming home, like from your car into the house, just because like that's what I would typically do, is sit out in my car.
Did you ever sit out in your car afterwards, and did they ever have to come and say, get in the house?
No, I think there might have been one time where like maybe I'm on the phone with a friend, and like they're coming out just checking, but like they're just making sure everything was good.
But they still allowed you to be an adult, but they did set boundaries for you. That's good.
Yeah.
Do you have a relationship with your mom, your biological mom?
So I don't. And that's been a huge part of like the healing process for me, which I'm still going through. I moved back in with when I say my parents, I'm speaking of my dad and my stepmom, just because I view my stepmom as my mom. But when I moved in with my parents when I was 15, so that's 16 years ago, I've maybe seen her 3 times. And I've talked to her a few times. Most of that was still during, teenage years. And then in adulthood, she has reached out, but it's kind of the same story. A big part for me was like the 6 years that I was with her was like a living hell, like I didn't, and for a kid who's 18 to 14 or 15, like to not want to live, so when I look back on that, and all of it is kind of things that she put me either in a situation for things to have happened, or things that she did directly to me. And so when I told my dad, hey, I want to move back in with you guys, like I can't go back there. And she told my dad, oh, she's making it all up. Like none of that happened. And that hit me so deeply, because it's like, I have been in living hell for the past 6 years. And for you to say like it hasn't happened, then I started questioning myself. I was like, well, did it happen? Was it that bad? Am I being too dramatic? And so for her to never kind of like admit that or take accountability for it, like for anything to happen, like she would have to start there.
For something to happen, they know it happened, it happened, and then for them to not admit that or even apologize. I know that sometimes we have to go through life not expecting an apology, but to deny that something actually happened, that's another level of forgiveness that we have to tap into.
Yeah. And then it plays out, it has played out in my adulthood years, like seeking validation from others, or fear of abandonment, fear of rejection, or feeling like I'm being too dramatic when it comes to my feelings. When no, how you feel is how you feel. So just trying to, I have compassion for her. I forgive her for myself so I can grow from it. But I just don't forget.
Yeah. That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. How has your stepmom stepped up for you?
I mean, from day one, has always been there, has always been loving, never tried to overstep and be like, oh, I'm your mom, I mean, she is my mom, but not in a way of like
forcing that, like, call me mom.
And so it's nice to have like that maternal presence, because, even from when I was younger, from before my parents split up, like my mom wasn't there in a maternal way. In my baby book, she wrote that there were no happy memories of her pregnancy with me because she didn't want me. So it's always feeling like I'm not good enough for like a mother figure to love me. And so my stepmom, she's just stepped in, no matter what's going on, especially with my drug addiction, like between that, or if, we all have character defects, like loving me through it all, being there to give the advice, the love. So it definitely helps.
That's a blessing, because most people who don't have their biological mom don't even have another mother to step in. And so for you to not have your biological mom, but then also have a mother to step in and love you as her own, that's a beautiful thing. Yeah, that's a beautiful thing. So, what advice do you have for people who are trying to beat addiction?
Just have grace and compassion for yourself, because I know that there was a lot of shame and guilt, like the actions that I did, the people that I hurt in my addiction. There's a lot of shame coming out of that. And so, and I'll speak for myself. Like, I didn't think that there was a reason to get sober, to get clean, because like I've burnt all these bridges. And I'll bring up Tyler, I missed, a big portion of her pregnancy with Oakland.
Yeah. Real quick. So Tyler is Terry's sister. She's my cousin. So that makes her, like, you call Tyler your sister, kind of, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So Tyler is kind of like Satara's stepsister.
Yeah.
Just so people are like, who's Tyler?
Yeah.
So, hey, Tyler.
But like I just wasn't there for her, and so we had fallen off before, like a couple months, maybe half a year before I ended up seeking treatment. And that was one of the things I wanted to work on in there, is because like my relationship with her is just so important to me. And I was so fearful that I wouldn't get it back. And so I ended up writing her a letter while I was in treatment. She received it. And, when I graduated the program, we caught up, and, today we're better than ever, thick as thieves.
That's good.
Yeah. If it's for you, it'll be in your life.
Yeah. I'm glad that Tyler was able to receive your apology and your letter, and that you all were able to, reconnect.
Yeah.
That's a blessing.
Yeah.
Is there other people also that you had to reconnect with because of your drug use?
Not really. So for me personally, my destruction was towards myself during my use. So I didn't, thankfully, like I didn't get to the point where like I was stealing from family and friends or like causing them harm. I mean, definitely emotional harm when it came to Tyler, because I wasn't there. And
was Tyler open with you about that? Did she say like, you haven't been here? Or did you just feel that?
Definitely felt it. It was one of those things where it just kind of like, broke apart.
Dissolved.
Yeah. And I think there was a conversation after her baby shower, I believe. And again, memory's a little foggy because I was still in the midst of my addiction, but I believe there was like a brief conversation, but I knew, even if it wasn't like plainly spelled out by her, I knew what it was.
Yeah. I think you can always feel the energy, and it's like, okay, something's going on. Yeah.
And then when I was still in, the unhealthy space of using, like, I get defensive. I'm like, okay, well, like, no, this person did this, and that. But, once the drugs were gone and I was doing the therapy and doing the work, I was like, okay, no, like I played a huge part in this. Yeah. So it's like, and you
were able to take accountability.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's big, because people who don't use, they have trouble taking accountability. And that's a big thing. That shows a lot of growth and maturity. So good for you.
Yeah. Thank
you. Yeah. Yes. What keeps you clean?
I would say definitely my family and friends. I mean, obviously I want it for myself, but that's not always enough. But like the friendships that I have today, like, just blow my mind, especially with women. I struggled a lot with relationships with women, one mostly due to my mom. I have another sister on my mom's side that, some things happened and felt let down by her. And so like, I'm just going into it thinking like, I can't trust women. Like, I can't find a track, I just didn't feel like I belonged. And that's, I feel like us as women, like we need that, just for so many reasons. And so when I got out of treatment, like I went to a few like women only meetings, and like I got connected through like a friend who introduced me to her sober friends. And I've been able to like build this network or this support. And like still in my life today, like I could not get through life without them. And I know no matter what, like there's nothing I can do, there's nothing I can say that would make them, look at me any type of way. And just wanting to keep that in my life, because it brings so much and it fills my cup up so much. Like that's a huge, which I don't think they would, like discard me, like, they would try to help me and things like that. But I just love where I'm at with all of them, that I wouldn't want to risk that. As well as with my family, like closer than ever.
You've really grown a lot, and I had no idea. I only know about your story because you've been so brave and vulnerable to share it. What has been your purpose behind sharing your story?
My purpose behind it is just how I felt when I was trying to seek help. Well, not only when I was trying to seek help, but before that, just being in the midst of it. Again, feeling the shame and feeling like there was no way out. Thankfully, addiction is talked about so much more present day, and there's a lot more grace towards it as far as like, hey, it's just people who are struggling with a disease, they need help, but that wasn't necessarily the case back 4 years ago.
It was looked at as a taboo, like, oh my gosh, like she's like, dealing dirty with this. And the reality is a lot of people are dealing with things that they don't talk about, and you look out and you see someone who's brave such as yourself, willing to offer your story as a beacon of hope for someone, that's doing a lot for just one person. Because they probably say, okay, I can overcome this, or I'm not the only one. I think a lot of times when we go through things, we think we're the only one.
The exception. No one else can know what I'm going through. And that's why it's like a safe place. And I have had people like private message me, like, hey, I am struggling with this. Like, can you give me numbers for resources? Maybe they're not ready for treatment as far as rehab, but like IOP or, different things out there that can help someone who's struggling. And that's all I want, for until the day I'm no longer here, is for people to think or to know that they can come and say like, hey, I'm struggling with this. Can you help?
Before we go, do you have any advice for anybody who's overcoming, or resources that they can tap into?
I would say just take it day by day. That is truly, still 4+ years sober today. That's what I have to remind myself. So take it day by day. Like, what can I tackle today? What problems can I fix today? Tomorrow will come tomorrow. So just stay in the present and know that there's always help out there. There's always a solution. It's just not worth it to go back to a drink or a drug. And to reach out. This is maybe not the correct or exact term, but it's like the phone's too heavy sometimes for people in recovery to pick up and call. So whether it's someone you trust who's also, walking the same path, or just a loved one, your family member, just picking up and saying like, hey, I'm struggling today. Like, I need to talk.
Thank you for telling your story.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, I'm excited that you were. I'm very happy that you, one, trusted me to come on Conversations with Courtney and talk and just be in this element. But two, I am so grateful that you wanted to share your story, because some people, they'll be like, I'm not sharing that part of my life. But I think that's what makes you so brave, and I think that a lot of people are going to be impacted just by hearing your story.
Thank you.
And I believe they're going to seek help, because of hearing your story.
Thank you. It's terrifying to be vulnerable sometimes. But then it's like, okay, let me get outside of myself. It's not all about me. I'm not the only person in the world. So if I've been through something that I know a lot of people struggle with, and if I can give them any type of like advice, hope, strength, anything like that, then, maybe that's what I'm here to do. So.
I will say this, because as you were talking, I was thinking about this. A lot of people, they feel like they're alone. They don't want to ask people for help because they feel like, who's going to understand me? And I believe that when you know that you're not alone, you're able to heal, and then you're able to help others heal. So then it's a cycle. But people who are not ready to receive that, they don't see the light out of the tunnel, and so they probably stay stuck in one place.
Stuck in one place. I definitely think you need a community, whether, however you find it, whoever your people are, you need a community. Because it is the fear. It's like, okay, I'm alone, like no one's going to understand. But being able to find someone that you can trust and be vulnerable with, and know like, no matter what I tell them, they have me, they got my back. I can be open and vulnerable. That's so healing and so freeing, and definitely plays a part in my journey.
Yes. And I think also we have to be willing, when we ask God, okay, is this person meant for me, or is this friendship supposed to be in my life? We have to be willing to accept whatever God God's answer is for that.
Mm-hmm. I remember there was one time there was a relationship and I was on my way to work and I was praying. I was like, God, I know this isn't in your will, but like, just let me handle it. And I kid you not, 2 days later, blown up. I was like, cool, I get it. Doing for me what I can't do for myself. I remember doing that prayer.
I was like, still laughing at the fact that you were like, hold on, God. Turns out, let me handle it. And he probably was like, girl,
right. So I'm really handling it.
I'm handling you. Like, okay, okay. And then you see why you should have let him handle it in the first place. And you like, all right, I'm going to back up. I'm going to back up.
I'm going to release control.
Because I've been there before. Like, all right, Lord, so this is what we going to do.
Yeah.
I'm going to do this. And then I want you just, and he like, nah,
that's not how it works.
No. Yeah. Like, what you're going to do, you're going to get in the back seat. Okay, Lord. All right, let me just go
back here.
Like, let me go and get in the back seat. Because you can drive better than I can. And I think that's also a thing in my relationship with God as I continue to grow with him. It's like, okay, Lord, let me just let you handle it. And even when it comes to wanting to get your lick back, you just be like, Lord, you hit harder than I do. That's really what I have to tell myself. Like, you hit harder than I do, Lord. And even if somebody has hurt you, let God handle that, especially if you claim to be a believer.
Yeah, let him handle it. And it's too much energy, too much emotion that you're pouring into something or someone else when you can be putting that into yourself.
Into your healing, into your blessings, into your next opportunities. Yeah.
And then we get stuck in this, in this state of emotion when we could, God's trying to advance us and we're still worried about getting our look back.
Pray for your enemies. I know people say like, pray for your enemies, but no, for real.
Yeah.
Because at the heart of it, they need that prayer. They really need the prayer of healing their soul. Because a lot of people, get this, a lot of people go through, maybe have your same story, right? Like they had a hard childhood with their parents or with their mother or whatnot. Parent probably wasn't there. What you do with the cards you're dealt makes all the world's difference. You cannot control what stack of cards you get, but you can really determine how you're gonna deal them out. Like how am I gonna play this hand?
My sister Mariah, we just had this conversation maybe a month ago, but she was like, we were just, having a real, like, genuine conversation. And she was like, Satira, like, you should be very proud of the fact of, like, you are who you are, and I can say this now. I used to hate, like, saying, like, attributes about myself, but, like, I am kind, I'm caring, I'm compassionate. Like, I feel deeply for people and I want to make people feel loved. And she was like, for the things that you went through, like, in your past and your childhood, like, to not be hardened by that. And it's like, because I chose not to, it's like, this affected me so deeply. I don't want to be the cause of this to someone else. And unfortunately, not everyone is at that place, maybe ever, or at that point in time in their lives. Like, they hurt, so they want to hurt. But it can definitely change, and it changes you. It changes your situation around you if you choose to pivot and, heal and not act on the things that have been done to you.
Because we wake up every day and we can decide, like, I'm going to live my life this way or that way.
Yeah, definitely it stems back to like the whole control thing. I can control myself, my thoughts, my feelings, my actions. I can't control anyone else's life. I can't control what happens to them, how they, or if you want to say punished or anything like that. So let go. Like the universe, God, it'll take care of it, and it's on its own timing. It's none of my business.
Girl, there you go. It's none of my business. It's because God has you. He got your back. It's been a pleasure to have you on. It really was a good conversation, because a lot of people need to hear that. That's why I started this podcast, is so that people could hear fruitful conversations, fun conversations, conversations that are serious sometimes and sometimes that are very lighthearted, but most of all, impactful. Like, I want people to feel impacted by what they hear on this podcast, And
can I just say too, I just want to commend you for doing this, especially, and I'm not saying like your target audience or your only audience or your only guests will be people of color or the Black community, but I think it's huge that that it includes us, because there's not a lot of space out there that's been taken up so far. And these are things, I've watched your previous convos with Courtney, and there are a lot of things that a lot of us need to hear, I think there was one that was talking about like wounds from mothers and stuff.
Healing the mother wound.
And obviously that struck deeply with me. And I think it just hits differently because there's things, we experience things differently as people of color, as Black individuals. And so while we can find podcasts or conversations out there, maybe they hit around the edges but it doesn't exactly like resonate with us.
Right.
So I just think
it's like, oh, that's great.
Yeah. I mean, I can kind of relate, but so I just think it's great what you're doing. And
thank you. That really means a lot to me. And I'm going to try to connect you with Stashay Smith, because that was my first episode, Healing the Mother Wounds. Shout out to Stashay. I love you. She is a big sis mentor to me. We met in a prayer room at a women's conference. And so it's just so beautiful how God connects people. I'm going to try to connect you with her because she also has a journal with Healing the Mother Wounds. And I believe she does cohorts and things like that. So that would be great. And awesome. That's why I do it, because, knowing that in your past you have dealt with something like that. And then, her story is, she's dealt with things like that where she's had to heal her mother wound, and she has produced a book out of that. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So it's all about how can we connect to each other so we can heal. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because it's like if you heal, then another person can heal, and then they can help heal someone
Keep
else.
Passing the message along.
Keep passing it along.
Yeah.
I love you. Give me a hug. Thank you so much. Thank you for coming on. Yeah. Again, I'm going to provide some resources for anybody going through addiction or who needs help or any kind of resource. I'm going to definitely connect you all. Thank you for tuning in. Look out for the next episode. And if you are here, subscribe to my channel. You're already here. Just subscribe and comment. I really appreciate if you all like and comment. I recently put out a charge for everybody to, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. And they helped me meet my goal. I wanted 50. I just wanted 50 subscribers before the end of January. Guys, last time I checked, I'm at 116. I'm so excited. So, the next charge is comment, share, and pass this along so that other people can gain, the resources and hear Satara's story. Love y'all. Thank you for tuning in. Satara, thank you so much. Thank you. Thanks for watching Conversations with Courtney. If you have not subscribed to my channel yet, please do so. And if you are a subscriber, thank you so much for your love and your support. Please comment, and share. Share not only because you've enjoyed this conversation, but you believe someone else can tap into the resources, the healing, and also gain some hope. These are some great stories, and I look forward to presenting more stories and having more conversations. So please join the discussion.